Just to speak immediately.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hibson, thank you for everything that you, I'm on the committee, on the personnel committee, and I left there, I think, fully satisfied with the explanation as to how both parties came to the ratification. I was just going to say that earlier, but after listening to some of my colleagues up here, I feel like I have to give a slightly uneducated opinion as to some of the comments that were made. $190,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And that's somebody who didn't spend one weekend or one Christmas or one Thanksgiving with their family because they were out working and giving up their family time and their life, not their life, but their lives, livelihood, whatever, to work for us. Maybe it was a ditch job, maybe it was overtime so somebody else, a new dad, can be home on Christmas morning, but did overtime and worked all those hours to earn the $190,000. Personally, with all the cops that are getting shot at left and right, I don't think you could pay me enough to do the job right now. Is he here? I didn't see him. Also, living in town, I think living in town, probably that's the only city job that I don't think should be required to live in town because of the fact that there might be retaliation for someone who was arrested someone, or there might be children going into classes together where, you know, one kid is a child of a criminal and one is a child of a cop, and there's always an issue. And then I could be completely wrong here, but I believe that there's a ton of minorities on the promotion list right now. I guess you could find out from the personnel committee, but I do believe that there are a lot of very eligible people that are looking to get promoted right now. I kind of sometimes feel insulted because I always have to defend myself for But anyway, guys, thank you very much for protecting us when we call you up to protect us, and when we don't call you up, and you come by and just make sure we're okay. I wish that you have all the safety that you need. Thanks.
Mr. Kimmel?
Okay, a number of things were raised that I think we ought to clear up. First of all, the net cost to the city each year of this contract is under 2%. That's what taxpayers will have to pay. That's lower than most contracts we've had over the last 10 years. So this is really, really a great contract from the perspective of taxpayers. Less than 2%. If you read the backup, it's in there. Number two, with the police, you have to look at overtime and extra work. I use the term extra work. They're different. When officers are receiving overtime, it's because there are vacancies or shortages in the department, and it actually saves the city money in the long run. Now, I'm not saying I'm for this. I think it's a problem. I think you should have all the staff you need so you don't have to work overtime. But the overtime does save the city money because there's no additional costs in benefits, pensions, or anything like that. I don't like relying on overtime, but it does save taxpayers money. And it's impossible to budget for police activities because we don't know what's going to happen in the course of the year. The President of the United States could come to visit Norwalk, and we have to do all of these things. It costs a lot of money. But I should point out, many of the overtime requests that come through the Board of Estimate and Taxation and come to the council, like this evening, are paid for out of other funds, federal funds, asset forfeiture funds, special state funds. It's not coming out of taxpayers' pockets in many cases. So you have to read the backup carefully when you're dealing with police overtime. When you see it coming out of contingency, that was planned when we adopted the budget. We don't put all the overtime money right out there in the police budget. It's in contingency. So overtime is kind of like a necessity we have to save taxpayers from additional funding for benefits and healthcare, things like that, pensions, whatever. Now, the 190,000 figure and all that stuff, as far as I know, that's paid for by private sources. It's not paid for by taxpayers. So if a cop is making 80,000 a year and ends up making 190, 110,000 of that money is not come out of the city budget. Now, there are some questions that we want to look at. I mean, how many hours can an officer work and still stay focused on the primary job? I think that's a legitimate issue that the police, I know from discussions, have looked at. But when you see 190,000, 180,000, 200,000 going to these officers, the bulk of that is not coming out of from taxpayers, and whatever overtime there is, a part of that is coming out of federal funds or state funds associated with joint operations with other cities or with the FBI. Now, I mentioned starting salaries when I talked about salaries for police officers. And from what I know, Mr. Hipson, I do have a question.
Would you step down, Mr. Hipson?
About the base salary, the starting salary for an officer in Norwalk, and the maximum salary for an officer in Norwalk. So if we hire someone tomorrow, what is their starting salary?
Norwalk starting salary is $61,000 for 7114, $61,420. The top step is $74,747. It takes 6 years to get there. I've actually prepared some documents that I'd like to.
Okay, but so if I'm correct, so so for an officer to max out after however many years, it's at $74,000. 6 years, $74,000?
For base pay, correct.
Yeah, base pay. And base pay for a teacher, another important job in most cities, exceeds, not the base pay, the max on the salary schedule is over 100 generally, correct?
I don't do most teachers' negotiations.
It is, believe me.
Okay.
Okay? It is. So a teacher will max out at maybe between 100 and 120. It's 119 in New York City right now for a teacher. Now, teachers also have many ways to make additional funds at taxpayers' expense. Unlike, they can't go out on a road like an officer can, but they'll work summer school, they'll do after-school programs, they do all kinds of stuff. Mostly it's non-pensionable, but just to get some perspective here on why officers are so intent on working overtime, extra jobs, and this, that, and another thing. If a teacher in Norwalk maxes out at about 120, and an officer in Norwalk maxes out at 75,000, we have an interesting issue here about public safety and how we look at public safety and what we're forcing with the situation that we're forcing officers to deal with. If you have maxed out at 74 grand and you got a couple kids you want to go to college, you may have a little problem if you live in Fairfield County. Okay? Anybody who studies the affordable housing and the workforce housing documents that we get, they qualify. Maximum salary, base salary of an officer in Norwalk will qualify that officer in Fairfield County for affordable housing. So we got to keep this thing in perspective, and throwing around numbers like 190,000, 180,000, that misses some really, that blurs the picture. Now, the other issue about diversity, we should always do whatever we can to improve, to increase the diversity of the department with the goal that ultimately it will reflect the city as best we can. African American, Hispanic, white, Asian, we should do everything we can to ensure that every level of the department reflects the city. And we should do that with our teachers, with our firefighters, with folks who work